Well, it's Wednesday, November 22nd, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. This is the Football Diehards YouTube channel. It's time to go on the hot seat. But first, footballdiehards.com is the website. You want to go there and check everything out there. We appreciate you joining us here on the YouTube channel every Wednesday at this time. Also on Saturdays at noon, I do the Ask Me Anything live streams where you can ask me anything. You could ask us anything here. I'm not going to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, all the YouTubey stuff that make the algorithm just squeal with delight. Also hit the like. That's the one they like. It likes the like. And if you want to dislike, go ahead and dislike. I'm not in the YouTube where I would dislike and break the seal, but go ahead. Feel free. It's a holiday weekend, kids. We've got a Thanksgiving Day triple header. We get the first ever Black Friday game, and we get an amazing Sunday slate. And heck, maybe Monday Night Football might even be, well, it's relevant. It might even be interesting. And speaking of interesting, I bring in our guest tonight, the one and only Nate Polvogt. You know him from Fantasy Face-Off, or the Fantasy, what is it, Fantasy Face-Off Network? What do we call that? I think you're muted, Nate. No, I don't hear you. There you go.
I was muted. I was muted during the intro here. We go by Face-Off Sports Network. So we're calling ourselves these days.
Face-Off Sports Network, Fantasy Pros, Fantasy Football Dynasty, Diehards, all kinds of things. You can find them all on his X handle at Nate Polvogt, Polvogt. I want to thank you all for coming. Appreciate everyone's time and energy coming here. See all our friends in the chat. Mike Art's there. Happy Thanksgiving to you, sir. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. We'll get that out of the way. We're looking forward to it. 3 games. Nate, what do you think of the slate this week?
Well, it's football, so we're excited about that, right? This Packers-Lions game, the early game, is going to be an interesting one. I want to see if Jordan Love shows up for this game on Thanksgiving. I don't know that he's going to. But then we've got Commanders-Cowboys. I think that's going to be a good game. The 49ers-Seahawks, I mean, Bob, let's be honest. The 49ers are going to run away with that game, right? Like, it's not even going to be close. I don't see that being a good game.
So, yeah, and then there's some chalky plays in there. I've done like a number of Thanksgiving Day only drafts, and you see an awful lot of Christian McCaffrey. See an awful lot of the Cowboys, too. Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb in there. So, see all you out there in the chat and appreciate you. We'll get to the questions in just a second. I want to grill Nate on a couple things. I have questions of my own, people, and they're very important questions. We got a lot going on, of course, in the NFL. This week, as we always do, the normal thing. We'll start out with some of the injuries in the games for tomorrow. We'll start out with the Packers and Lions. No Aaron Jones. He has been ruled out. Luke Musgrave is done for a while, I'm guessing, with a lacerated kidney. That's a horrible injury. And also A.J. Dillon is questionable. So they elevated Patrick Taylor from the practice squad. They also signed and elevated one James Robinson. I think you'd have to be pretty desperate there, Nate, to get in on that. Dontavian Nick Wicks is questionable with concussion and knee issues. The rest of the receivers who are on the injury report, them being Jaden Reed and Christian Watson, are all good to go. Everyone's pretty much good to go for Detroit. No worries there for the Dallas Cowboys. I think Rico Dowdle is the only interesting Cowboy there. CeeDee Lamb came off the injury report, so you're all good to go there. On the other side of the ball, Antonio Gibson questionable. For San Francisco and Seattle, San Francisco, everybody's good to go. For Seattle, not everybody is. Geno Smith is questionable, Nate. He's probably going to play. Pete Carroll basically acknowledged. Kenneth Walker, though, has got the oblique. He is listed as doubtful, unlikely to play. Let's start there. Your level of interest in Zach Charbonnet going up against the San Francisco defense.
I'm interested because I want to see what Charbonnet can do. Now, I'm not going to start him in any fantasy scenario unless I absolutely have no choice. Against the San Francisco defense, you just don't want that smoke, right? Like, you don't want to take that chance on a rookie running back against this defense. But I want to see if he can be productive. And if he can be productive this week against San Francisco, he's someone I'm considering acquiring for any sort of playoff run in fantasy. Because with Ken Walker doubtful, unlikely to play, we've seen Charbonnet get more work anyway with Ken Walker in. If he's able to take over this backfield down the stretch and Ken Walker's out, he's somebody you're going to want at least on your bench as an option if he's productive. And if he can do it against San Francisco, he can do it down the line the rest of the schedule.
Totally agree. We've got the Cowboys are an 11-point favorite. I mean, we're expecting big things there. And so, I mean, everyone's playing Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, all the big pieces. And on the other side of the ball, the volume has been immense. Like, Sam Howell has thrown the ball 60 times more than any other quarterback in the NFL. Volume is You guys know how I feel about that out in the chat. It is where the fantasy production comes from. You can't have one without the other. And you don't always get both, but you definitely can't have one without the other. So how do you feel about Washington in this game? What pieces are you most interested in?
I'm starting Sam Howell every week. He's QB4, and it's not necessarily pretty every week, but the guy is just getting it done with grit, and I want him in my lineups, especially in one QB this week. For some reason, I don't know, Bob, this isn't a great matchup against Dallas, right? Like everything says you shouldn't be starting Howell. This is going to be a down week for him. It's Thanksgiving. It's a division game. And I think that there's a really good chance that Sam Howell maybe has his best week of the season against Dallas. Maybe I'm crazy, Bob. Sam Howell's a guy I want in my lineup the rest of the season, and this week included. Like, I don't know. It's a gut feeling that he's going to have a big week against Dallas.
I think he could have a big week every week, right? And so which of the pieces, I like Terry McLaurin is like the primary piece, but Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, both seem viable. Logan Thomas has been at times, has not been all the time. Brian Robinson has been getting a lot of a pretty nice receiving share with Antonio Gibson out. Maybe we see Gibson, but even still, are you in on Robinson? And what about the ancillary receivers?
I'm definitely in on Brian Robinson. I think he's an every week start at this point. He's just shown that he's productive. He's going to carry the load in that offense with or without Antonio Gibson. With Gibson out, there's obviously a bump there with the receiving work, so it makes me a little bit more excited for Robinson this week. As far as other parts in this offense, Bob, I think Terry McLaurin is a guy that you want to start this week. He's a guy who's going to aid Howell. This is a big game for this team. They want to beat the Cowboys, and they're going to have to do it through the air. McLaurin's a start. I think Jahan Dotson is a sneaky start. And here's one that I'm going to throw out here, Bob. This is kind of a sleeper play if you're looking for like a dart throw flex. Jamison Crowder has been getting involved in this offense. And if he's on the field, is it likely that he's fantasy relevant? I'd give it 50-50. But if Jamison Crowder gets a touchdown, he's a wide receiver 3 this week. And it's a sneaky play if you're looking for that boom upside and you're just looking to get as many points as you can.
So that brings up the Green Bay Detroit game without Luke Musgrave. We saw Tucker Kraft get a touchdown last week. Is he kind of an outlier, kind of a off the wall play if you're playing in a Thursday only slate on the daily sites?
I wouldn't say any tight end is an off the wall play. Given the position in any format in fantasy, look, Tyler Kraft could be a boom play. He gets a touchdown. He's a tight end 1-tier player this week. I don't hate it, especially with Musgrave. I mean, he's done for the season, obviously, with the laceration. I mean, why not? Right? Why not? Christian Watson has been so-so. Jaden Reed is starting to kind of show that he's valuable in this offense. Wicks is questionable. You've got Dobbs, but we don't know what this offense is. And if Kraft can carve out a role for himself the rest of the season, I mean, he's not a terrible start. And this week I like him especially because we're talking about Thanksgiving and anything's possible.
Everything is possible. Everyone's very excited to see Nate Polvogt. Well,
What's
you
up,
should
Albert?
be too. Albert's always around. And so we'll get into the questions here. A couple other things, though. The Black Friday game, or we owe Amazon for taking away their Thursday game. Miami, the New York Jets, big story, Zach Wilson bench. Does this move the needle for you? I mean, Tim Boyle is not like someone I'm excited to play. What does it do to your Garrett Wilson shares, I guess is the question.
Oh, I don't feel good about it. I mean, I wish they still had Mike White. I think we all wish they still had Mike White, right? Boyle's fine. We saw him play a couple games in Detroit a few years ago in a fill-in role behind Stafford. He was okay. There's nothing to be super excited about. I think Garrett Wilson for redraft is pretty much dead rest of season. Maybe he'll have a boom play, but I don't think you can count on any consistency. Zach Wilson, the one thing I want to bring up here, Bob, Zach Wilson was demoted to 3rd string. Just to be clear, he's now sitting behind Trevor Siemian. And we all know Trevor Siemian here. I think it's over for Zach Wilson, Bob. This has got to be the end of the line.
I think we may see Trevor Siemian before the end of this game, but you know, I think at some point we'll see it. But I agree with you. The Zach Wilson run is over. You know, I thought coming into the season early on, that right after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, that Zach Wilson had gotten better enough to at least keep them on the field with that defense. He proved to be absolutely incapable. I mean, this last game, you know, they stuck with him as long as they could. And I guess for me, from my perspective as a fantasy manager, I'm worried about one thing. I'm worried about, is the offense on schedule enough to keep the pieces productive? Garrett Wilson had been productive with Zach Wilson. Breece Hall was coming on. I thought maybe they could pull it off. but they could not. And Zach Wilson absolutely could not. Devin Achane listed as questionable. Will be listed as questionable almost certainly. Mike McDaniel said today that he's got to prove that he can make it through a whole game. Let's say he is active. What would be your level of confidence in playing him?
I'm not going to.
That's fair.
If I, and to qualify, anytime I say that I'm not going to play or start a player, that's if I have the option to not start them. There are probably managers out there that don't have an option, that they need Devin Achane back in that lineup, and then you can start him. But if you have a decision, you have a choice, you have another player, I'd leave him on the bench for one more week. Let's let him get fresh, let him get re-involved in the offense, get him off of a pitch count, and get him ready for the fantasy playoffs.
This is true. Low level of confidence in Achane out in the chat as well, and we agree with that. Well, it's like sometimes you want to give it a week to wait and see. There's a lot going on in the league, but also a lot going on in the chat, Nate. So we'll dive into some of the questions because that's what the people are here for, to hear your brilliant answers to their burning questions, and then me to taunt you when you give the wrong answer. That's what it's all about. And again, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'm Bob Harris. He's Nate Polvogt. You can catch his work at the Face Off Sports Network. If I want to say it right, I'll say it right this time. And also other places. You often catch him on the Football Diehards radio program on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, where he's like a go-to guest, what we call a go-to guest. If you need somebody, Nate is there. And
that's me.
Like, it's super valuable. The availability is the best ability in many things, including football and talking about football. And Nate is actually very good at it too, so that helps and works in his favor. So we're really happy to have you here. Let's dive into the questions, Nate, and I'll bring them up here. We'll start with this one. Mike Arts wants to know, full PPR. Need to. Kyron Williams, by the way, designated to return. I think it's pretty safe bet to say he will return. They turned Darrell Henderson loose, although they put him back on the practice squad today. Not a huge surprise, but I'm guessing he will be active. So let's pretend he's going to be. And Mike, you need to watch that and make sure they'll have to activate him by Saturday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. Javonte versus the Browns, one of your guys up there in Denver. Connor James versus the Rams. Singletary versus Jacksonville. And is it worth playing one of those, who you're not starting, in the flex over Olave or Pittman?
Oh boy! All right, here. So let's get to the full point PPR. You need two running backs. I'm gonna first of all, if Kyron Williams is active, I want him against the Cardinals. Their run defense is putrid. And I think I want James Conner. I think that he's such a big part of this offense. Those are the two guys I'm starting. I'm tempted to say Singletary against Jacksonville just because he's boomed so much in that Houston offense, but I'm nervous. I'm nervous about Devin Singletary because every time a player like this I start, they burn me. So
two things on him. Jacksonville's tough run defense. They're no slouch at that. Also, Dameon Pierce working fully. Look, I think Devin Singletary has won this job, but he had won it all to himself pretty much. I think Dameon Pierce coming back maybe cuts a little of the top end off it if he's having a rough go. I love Javonte. I think the volume's been going higher. So I might consider him over Olave or Pittman. Am I pushing too hard?
No, I don't think so. Olave makes me nervous. I don't like the New Orleans offense. Olave's not going to hit his ceiling this season, unfortunately. It's just not going to happen. There isn't good enough quarterback play in that offense. And with Pittman against the Bucs, Minshew's been so streaky, it makes me nervous to kind of roll him out. I probably, honestly, Bob, I'm leaving both of those guys on my bench this week.
Yeah, I think the concern for me for Javonte is obviously the Cleveland defense is a big deal. You'll be surprised to learn. So, but man, that volume has been really nice most weeks. I'm probably going to stick with Pittman here. Only because of the matchup and the Singletary issue matchup and the possibility Dameon Pierce is back. If you feel braver, if you think Devin Singletary is exactly what we've seen the last 2 weeks, I'll remind you 3 weeks ago, it wasn't great, right? In his first game in there. But look, it's been super solid and he gets a good passing attack to keep the pressure off him. He's not running into heavy boxes, that's for sure. So wouldn't blame you if you went that direction. I think most people are going to stay away from Javonte or their Denver Broncos for the most part against Cleveland if they possibly can. Another question from Mr. Mike Arts. McBride versus Rams, Ferguson versus Washington.
Oh, this is McBride for me. He's a must start every week.
He hasn't had less. I think it's been close to 30% target share. I don't think he's had less than a 24% target share since Zach Ertz has been out. By the way, Zach Ertz is eligible to return this week, but I haven't seen any sign that he's been designated as such at this moment. So we'll watch out for that. Mike Arts getting busy early. Mike Arts likes to get his questions in early. You don't mess around. Mike Arts is like,
I love it.
Bam, bam, banging the hammer. Dynasty was offered Saquon Barkley for a 2024 late first and late second. current top 3 running backs: Josh Jacobs, Brian Robinson, Derrick Henry, and a bunch of backups currently in second thoughts. Barkley for a 2024 first and late second. Look at the fantasy football, the Diehards Dynasty guy, the minds, the wheels turning.
This is a tough one because I like the return for Saquon Barkley, who's a guy who I think we're going to start to see that downturn here soon. But you're in second place, and he offers a lot of value for you for a playoff run and to win a championship this season. And I think because of that, I don't think I make this deal because I'm in contention. If I'm a team that's looking to rebuild, or I'm a middle of the road team, I'm the back end of the playoff push here, maybe I'm going to make that deal. But you're in second place. I'm not making it.
I'm not making it either for the exact same reason. You are correct, sir. Correct answer. That's all you have. Mike Arts, one more time. Different league. PPR Dynasty, 3 out of 4. Taylor versus Tampa Bay. Kyron Williams versus Cards. Eckler versus Ravens. Montgomery versus Packers. Thanks to you, Mike, and happy Turkey Day. 3 out of those 4. Who's sitting?
Oh, boy. This isn't going to be popular, Bob, but I think I'm sitting Jonathan Taylor out of these 3. Zach Moss has just been so good, and we don't know what volume we're going to see from Taylor. He could have 25 carries. He could split it 15 and 15 with Zach Moss. He could have 5 carries to 20 Moss carries. It's just, we know what we're going to get out of these other 3 players. I think Jonathan Taylor is going to sit for me this week.
I think people are going to like this answer even less. If it's last week's Austin Eckler, I'm not interested in that guy. And it's against Baltimore. This is a tough call. I mean, this is kind of a you call. I mean, when you have 4 players in the top 15 or maybe higher, depending on whose rankings you're looking at. I mean, you could make the argument that Montgomery is odd man out based on the pecking order, but it's been a pretty even split with possibly the best player in football, Jahmyr Gibbs. Everyone knows that. I think there's no argument at this point that Bob Harris is totally right about Jahmyr Gibbs. Just took longer than we thought. That's all. I'm totally just stumped. I want to join in with you and say Jonathan Taylor, but I think I might go Eckler just because of the matchup, and he will utterly destroy me. He's a fantasy player. He's a very prideful man, owns himself in multiple leagues, I'm quite sure. So damn it. But that's the way I'm going. Again, Mike, this is kind of a you thing. If you have a hunch or you have a feeling, play your hunch, play your feeling more so than my feeling, or play Nate's because his is probably better than mine. And thank you, Golf Boy. Nice to see you. Charles Davis in here. We've got this for PPR needs 2 running backs, a pair. Raheem Mostert at New York Jets. Look at the way Charles Davis does this. He knows we don't have the schedules up in front of us. I mean, we remember most of this, but he puts them in the question of that. Raheem Mostert at New York Jets. Joe Mixon versus Pittsburgh, maybe the new focal point of that Cincinnati offense. And Ramondre Stevenson against the New York Jets. I'm grateful for all your help this season. We are grateful, Charles, for you showing up every week and asking questions. So thanks for that, man. All right. Yeah. Who you throwing out? Why is it Ramondre Stevenson?
Well, it's definitely Ramondre Stevenson. And I'm sitting Mostert against the Jets defense. I think Mixon, like you said, he's becoming a focal point of the Cincinnati offense. They need him to be efficient. And he was actually efficient last week for the first time in God knows when. And you don't really want to bench Ramondre Stevenson. I don't want Mostert this week. I don't like that matchup.
Yeah, the Patriots are playing the New York Giants, so that's a much easier matchup.
Right.
Come on, Charles. I just gave you kudos, and then you put the wrong team. I'm just kidding, man. It's okay. We got it. We figured it out.
I mean, J&G, they're 2 spots away on the keyboard. So
they play in the same stadium. It's hard to tell them apart.
Right.
They're both terribly horrible at various points in time. I want to co-sign on this one, and I probably will, just given the matchups. I mean, there's an argument to be made that Joe Mixon, and he was fantastic, right? Last week it was a good game. I mean, he's kind of been hit or miss. Great against San Francisco. Is this offense going to get better? Will it stay on schedule? I think probably it will. I'm going to go with you here. I'm loath to sit Mostert just because of his big playability. He's a little nicked up. Maybe watch the injury report, and if he is if he's totally off the injury report, I'd give it some thought. It's between him and Mixon for me. I'm going to go with Nate at the moment. And revisit with me after Friday's game, and I can tell you if I was right or wrong. You won't see me until Saturday. Check me out on the radio, though. I might have thoughts about that. I'm going to be on tomorrow night, by the way, Nate. You'll be surprised to learn. Very happily, I'm sure. You'll be
shocking.
dialed in. You'll be dialed in. We're on from 11 until 1 after the games. Dempsey and I will be running you through the results, and we'll be on Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. Saturday, usual 8 to 11 on NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel. So be ready for that. And Sunday on the pregame show. So be there. So I'm gonna go with you on this one, Nate, and just kind of give them a little unanimity. These are some tough questions this week, right?
They are.
And I think everyone needs to acknowledge that we're sitting here and we're going to tell you what we do. You should end up doing what you want to do. If you have hunches, if we don't agree with your hunches, none of these are all so tight that y'all know I'm willing to acknowledge here. If I have some 3 players in the same tier, like I'm not going to pretend I can say this one is number 3, this one is number 7. I mean, that's what we do because linear rankings are the thing. But if they're in the same tier, they're all fair game. If you have strong feelings about any of these players that you're asking about, you're not crazy to play them when you're asking questions of players this closely grouped. And hello, Dame. Hello, Scampers. Hello, Andrea. Nice to see you all. Appreciate you. Royal, good to see you. Toronto, Dave. What a great group of people. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Dave Listman. Really appreciate you. Andrea's got a question, though. and honestly, we should all be asking Andrea our questions. I was talking about this in a draft the other night. I said, I've drafted with Andrea. She's out there asking questions. So we should be asking her. Needs 2, and this is another tough one. Mostert versus the Jets. Pacheco versus the Vegas Raiders. Bijan Robinson versus New Orleans. Ramondre Stevenson versus the Giants. The 2 you would like, Nate. First of all, let's just say Isaiah Pacheco, I was kind of out on. I talked about it a little bit on the pregame show and on the the radio at various points. Like, this was a tough matchup for him, the Philadelphia Eagles on Monday Night Football. He looked good running the ball. There was not a lot of fantasy production, but he looked good running the football. I think I like what I might get out of him against Vegas, but I want to hear what you have to think there.
So, Bob, I had a similar thought watching that game against the Eagles. He ran the ball really well. The fantasy production wasn't there.
No.
But what you saw out of him leads you to believe that this is a guy who's going to be a linchpin of this offense down the line. They're not looking for another running back at this point, right? So as a dynasty manager, be happy you have Isaiah Pacheco. He's a good running back in a really good offense. That said, I really like him against Vegas because this is a division game in Vegas. I mean, let's be honest. As a Broncos fan, I'm so happy to say this, Bob. Vegas sucks. They're just from top to bottom. Now, Antonio Pierce has actually gotten this team to play a little bit harder as the interim coach. Little emotion. Good for them. As a football fan, I love to see it. But this is still a bad team. It's mediocre talent on defense outside of really Max Crosby. Get Pacheco out there. And then Ramondre against the Giants, I think, is my number 2 here. And I know, Bob, it's Bijan. But it's Bijan and Arthur Smith's offense. And I don't trust him enough to start him week in and week out. And in this game against New Orleans, I don't know what we're going to see from this offense, especially now that we're going back to Desmond Ridder at quarterback. Right. I'm too nervous with Bijan to start him this week, especially with playoffs on the line here.
These other options are all great. I might go Mostert against the Jets, just hoping he breaks off a big play. Andrea, this is kind of one of those decisions where you want to go, are you swinging for the fence a little bit, or are you rolling for the floor, right? Or you just want the solid floor. I think probably Stevenson gives you a better floor. Don't know what the quarterback situation is there. The offense has not been great. Ramondre's been the best part of it. This is not a defense you should fear, although the Commanders say they're capable of getting turnovers. But generally speaking, I think it's a fair matchup. But I would go Mostert and Pacheco myself, I think, in this one. And have a little upside with Mostert. All he needs is 1 carry, right? And if he's listed as questionable for this game, Andrea, and you see that in advance, go ahead and take him out. He's got knee and ankle issues. I don't think he generally plays through these and doesn't get a designation. So I'm probably going to go ahead and play him. And that's where just playing that big play upside. Royal Slade, half-point PPR, needs one running back, 1 flex. Singletary versus Jags. Kyron Williams versus Arizona at Arizona. Zach Charbonnet versus San Francisco. Deontay Johnson at Cincinnati. Cortland Sutton versus Cleveland. Or Herbert or Roshan Johnson at Minnesota. Interesting.
1 running back, 1 flex. So I'm probably going to say Kyron Williams against Arizona if he's active because of the matchup. It's the best matchup. And then if you're looking for a flex here, I'm going to go with the Matt Canada just got fired momentum in Pittsburgh. And I'm going to go Deontay Johnson against Cincinnati. Yeah, and this is a team that is we're going to see a new energy out of this team. Matt Canada's gone. The Boswell clip tells you everything you need to know about how this team felt about Matt Canada. When that weight gets lifted off of a team, they tend to have a big game or two. So I'm going to go Deontay Johnson for the boom game here.
I'm not against that. I think, again, I'm not keen on Singletary. I'm going to look at some numbers here real quick just to make sure I'm not like totally lost my mind. Yeah, I'm kind of with you on this one. I think Deontay's a little bit of a hunchy play, but I kind of agree with that hunch. You see guys come out. By the way, Deontay Johnson was like ready to fight coaches on the sidelines in this game, right? I mean, this was like, we had gotten to that point where you got Najee Harris, giving an interview that you could see the media relations person kind of, okay, that's enough. We can end it here. And he's ready to keep going. He had more to say, and he kept saying it. A lot of issues. So I do think that burst of energy is going to be a thing. Cortland Sutton against Cleveland. Cortland Sutton's been fantastic. If you invested in him late in drafts, the touchdown numbers have been great. I can avoid this versus Cleveland. I think for me, it's down to Deontay or Singletary. I think Slade, if you think like the floor is a little safer or a little area you wanted to go navigate, I think Singletary has the better floor. But I'm going to probably go with Nate and say Kyron Williams and Deontay Johnson. Watch for that activation, as you well know. Check with me on Saturday, or we'll see where it's heading on Saturday. But I think they've kind of played their hand when they turned Darrell Henderson loose early in the week. Need 3. Chase versus Pittsburgh. St. Brown versus Green Bay. This is why Andrea, she's a good drafter. She has this problem. And I mean, I've seen her draft and I know how she pulled these things off. Olave versus Atlanta. Devontae Smith versus Buffalo. Who sits?
I'm probably sitting Olave against Atlanta.
So I feel like I've had like a really negative perception of Olave, and I went and looked at the numbers. I think my negative perception came mostly because Derek Carr doesn't like him and yells at him. Even when Derek Carr throws the ball out of the bounds and Chris Olave was never going to catch it, he ran the wrong route. Okay, I mean, you threw the bad pass, Derek Carr. Yell at yourself a little bit too. But at that point, the numbers were a little better for Olave. The numbers have not been as great. And so we'll see. There's no Michael Thomas now. We'll see more Rashid Shaheed. We'll see some A.T. Perry. And we'll see. And A.T. Perry last game. But I do think Derek Carr is going to be coming back. And I don't know if that's like the ideal for Olave. And in my perceptions aside, just double checking the numbers real quick, because I feel like sometimes I get over-invested in a narrative and I want to just double check. What are we looking at Olave right now? Wide receiver 25, 8.4 points per game. I mean, that's just not a great average. That's not an average I have to have in lineup. So I'm with you, Nate. I will go that way and let this offense sort itself out. It had been on a little bit of a roll, right? They had the 3 straight, Carr had 3 straight 300 passing games. So it looked good for a little while. All right.
Well, Olave had those boom games here in the middle of the season. It was like, oh my God, look, it's finally happening. Woohoo. And then it came back down to earth because Dennis Allen is the coach.
Right. I think these are things we need to, be mindful of, people. And, I preach this all the time, your perceptions. Like I keep thinking like we had maybe a bad perception of, like last week, I had a lot of questions, Nate, about Josh Allen or Josh Dobbs, Josh Allen or somebody else. And you go and you look at the numbers and yes, his offensive coordinator was fired. Yes, he was coming off a not great game. Also, yes, he scores more fantasy points per week than any other quarterback in the NFL, right up there with Jalen Hurts and ahead of guys like Patrick Mahomes, who probably is just clogging your starting lineup right now because his name is Mahomes. So watch out for those things. Divorce the name from the numbers, people. Go out and look at the numbers. Go into your commissioner software. Check the weekly stats. I like to check the weekly average scoring. And that, to me, is a big tell of who I want to play. It's a game of probabilities. Play the probabilities. Andrea needs 1 running back and 1 flex from Ford versus Denver, Javonte Williams versus Cleveland, Lockett versus San Francisco, and Demario Douglas. Pop, they call him. I like him, but it's against the New York Giants. A couple thoughts here quickly. Lockett, Metcalf, and Bobo all off the injury report. The final injury report, they were, there was various missed times and days off and limited sessions, but they're all off the injury report and good to go for this game.
So I love Tyler Lockett, Bob, but I can't start him this week because we don't know. We're going to get either a 75% Geno Smith or Drew Lock against a very good San Francisco defense. And Javonte against this Cleveland run defense, I don't love. But when you're talking about Ford against the Denver defense, which has been vastly better the last 4 games than they were to start the season, versus Javonte Williams, I think I'm rolling out Javonte as my running back here, simply because of, like you said, the volume's going to be there. And Javonte Williams is a far more talented overall back than Jerome Ford is. So if you're between Ford and Javonte, you've got to start Javonte. As far as the flex goes, I'm probably going to go with Pop Douglas because I love him. And I think he's the best receiver on this Patriots team. And it's not even close.
So my concern there is obvious. It's a phenomenal matchup. Sure. Can the quarterback live up to it? I will go. And so we heard a little hint today. Maybe Mac Jones was asked if he would be the starter. And he said, I hope so. It looks that way. Like, I don't know that Will Grier or Bailey Zappi are better options for them, or they would already be in there, right? So, and I will remind everybody in games that, it hasn't happened every time, but in games where it's been favorable matchups, we've seen Mac Jones leverage those. Go back to Philadelphia in week 1. He had a big game. The receivers had a big game. I'm going to probably go with you on this one. I feel like I'm going with you on this one. Damn it. It worries me because not that I'm going with you. Javonte's an easy, I think just over 4. Like we're back kind of to the murky 3-man committee, definitely 2-man. And it seems like it shifts a little bit. Like you'll see, 1 week it'll be, Ford getting the early down work, and then he's getting third down work and no goal line work. And then he's getting the goal line work, and Hunt is getting, there doesn't seem to be a consistent thing that I can count on. And Pierre Strong is kind of the stick of the spokes there at some point. So, or at least takes the top of it. I'm with you. I don't think Lockett has a horrible matchup against San Francisco, but the quarterback issue may be a little bit of concern. All right, Andrea, I think we've totally confused that issue. I hope that was helpful, Andrea. I appreciate you coming, of course. Another one from Andrea, by the way. This one seems a little more. Okay, here we go. Ferguson versus Washington or Schultz versus Jacksonville. They're like Schultz is on a little bit of a tear. Does the Jacksonville defense worry you against tight ends?
I didn't think I would be saying this about CJ Stroud this early in his career, Bob. I don't care who he's playing. I don't care. I don't care about the defensive matchup for Stroud and this Texans offense. They're too good. Stroud has been too good. He can do whatever he wants against a lot of these defenses. He made 3 mistakes, 3 big mistakes last week, but they still won the game. Give me Dalton Schultz. And I love Jake Ferguson. I've been pounding the table for go get Jake Ferguson at a discount week 2, week 3, week 4. But Dalton Schultz is the start here, even against this Jacksonville defense. I still love him. I think he'll see 8 to 10 targets.
Yeah, I got Schultz at number 7 this week. I have Ferguson at number 10. Your mileage may vary. They're, both clearly starting tight ends, but that high end that kind of goes with CJ Stroud. Like we just have to acknowledge where CJ Stroud is at right now. And okay, compared to Dak, maybe he's not all that great, but Dak has, also the CD Lamps. Look, there's a lot of good weapons on both, but it seems like a more prominent role, slightly more prominent role for Schultz than it is for Ferguson for me. So there we have that. And let's see, Mr. Scampers has a question. With Aaron Jones out and Dylan banged up, would you play him or Dobbs tomorrow at Detroit? Half-point PPR. So Dylan, I'm guessing. Dylan or Dobbs?
AJ Dillon's thighs. I wish I had those thighs. Like, man, talk about power and being able to run really fast. They don't make him a good running back. Dobbs is the boom play. He has a higher ceiling than AJ Dillon does this week. You're looking for points. You're in half PPR. Go with Dobbs.
I'm kind of with you here. Detroit's run defense is no joke. And kind of, man, Dillon's just been disappointing. Do they cloud it up with some other pieces? He's questionable with the groin. I'm doing the same, Scampers. That's where I'm at. And clear me up if I read that question or misread that or misunderstood that or you threw something else out above it I didn't see. By the way, Royal Slade, thank you for the shout out. Look, people, I'm not here to run victory laps. I almost swore. I almost swore. That's how convicted I am of this. I'm not here to run victory laps, but excuse me while I run a brief victory lap. I'm not going to do it like a Matt Kelly. I'll get up and run around the room victory lap. Nope. I'm just going to do a regular Bob Harris victory lap. No, this is like, when I go back, and by the way, I just acknowledge Herbs is out in the house here. Herbs, great to see you. I know you love the Najee Harris. We're going to discuss that. I just that caught my radar. Appreciate you coming. But the Gibbs thing. So this went back to what I was selling. Basically, was not necessarily Gibbs, but it was Bijan in round 1 versus Gibbs in round 3. And, a lot of times the cheaper pieces of groups or pairs or numbers, like just guys in the receiving core. I have a ton of Cortland Sutton because he was cheaper than Jerry Jeudy. I have way more probably still Tim Patrick in best balls because he was even cheaper still. I have a lot of Adam Thielen because he was cheaper than a lot of guys. I have a lot of secondary players who end up being good. There's a lot of Raheem Mostert, because he was going. Look, A-Chance turned out to be fine, but it takes some time. But this is the notion for me of drafting for value, not overpaying for players. I think we were overpaying for Bijan, and my argument on Gibbs all along was if we're investing a first round pick, a fantasy pick in a guy based on his draft capital anticipated role, and yes, he's very talented, then why aren't we all over Jahmyr Gibbs where he was going? And it's taken both of them some time to hit stride, and I think right now Gibbs is going a little better, but look, that could change a little bit. It's close, but Gibbs is turning into the thing I expected, and that is like the trying to make a low-key message out of a victory lap. It wasn't really a victory lap. We're all winners here. So let's talk about Najee Harris. So we have the duo Eric Faulkner and Mike Sullivan come in. So Mike Sullivan's going to be the play caller. They're not going to change the offense, right? I mean, the offense is going to be what it is, but they're going to bring some new energy, maybe some new personnel, some new focus on different personnel. Do you think, I guess the question is not so much is Najee Harris, going to be reclaimed, but is Jaylen Warren going to allow him to rise back up, right? I mean, I do think he's a decent buy low. I mean, if you can buy him low, I think he is. He's still a solid play. But Jaylen Warren seems to be taking the shine off.
Well, if we know anything about Mike Tomlin, it's that he just wants to find a way to he wants to be 500 at minimum every season. And he finds a way to do it every year. The way he's going to do that this season is going to be with Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren carrying the ball a ton, because Kenny Pickett just isn't what they hoped he would be. They need to run the ball to stay in the hunt for the division. Najee Harris is a great buy low, and there is an absolute possibility that he takes over the backfield as we get closer to the playoffs, the fantasy playoffs and the real playoffs. And at the price you can buy him for, the Najee Harris managers are completely disillusioned. They're seeing Jaylen Warren get more work, and they're ready to sell. You can get him for cheap. And if he doesn't pay off, life goes on. If he does, you got a potential league-winning running back that you can plug in and you got at a discount.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. And, Herms, I know you cannot get enough of Najee. I think this is a perfect setup, right? Perfect setup. A golf boy, PPR, not PPR, my bad. Need to Tank Dell versus Jacksonville, Chris Olave at Atlanta, or Michael Pittman versus Tampa Bay, Ridley at Houston.
The only one I'm solid on here is Tank Dell, because Tank Dell's Tank Dell. Tank Dell is so tankish that they had to, on the wire, release that his name is not Nathaniel Dell.
Right.
Well, he was like, but there's that Nathaniel Polvogt guy who does fantasy content. We can't, I've got to change my name to Tank officially.
I'm calling you Tank.
He did it. Yes, I love it.
Tank
I've always
Polvogt.
wanted a nickname. Tank Polvogt. Perfect. I love it. Tank Dell is the man. I was on Tank Dell when he got drafted in Houston, pairing him with Stroud, looking at the talent. I know a lot of people were worried about the size. That hasn't mattered in this Houston offense. Tank Dell all day. I think I'm going to go Michael Pittman here.
I think Atlanta. I am too in a standard league. I think I'm going to join you in that. Dell is fantastic. Second on the team with receiving yards, but he's right up there among rookies in Houston history with guys named DeAndre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins. Those guys are very good. Nico Collins only slightly ahead. And how many games did Dell miss? Missed one game with a concussion. Collins has
Just the
missed some
one,
time too. Man, they've both been revelations though. Those are both guys you drafted very late who are serving you very well, Golf Boy. So I would play. I'm with you. I'm playing Dell and Pittman. One thought on Ridley though, and we've been having this discussion on the Football Diehards radio program on the regular because Mike Dempsey's down there in Jacksonville trying to dissect what's up with Calvin Ridley. One of the things that's been up with Calvin Ridley is Zay Jones not being there. And whatever you think about Zay Jones as a single player or a playable piece, he seems to make the offense better when he's there. You look at Calvin Ridley's 3 good games, or with Zay Jones, he makes Evan Ingram a little better. It's a weird dynamic there, and they think he's a very important piece. So hopefully he can stay on the field. But I'm with you in this case. In a standard league, I'm going with those same people there. Let's see. Willpower. Oh, we got a trade. Trade talk. This is in a dynasty, and you're asking the right man from the Dynasty Diehards himself, Mr. Nate Polvogt. Nate Tank Polvogt. Dynasty Diehards and Face Off Sports Network. If you're just tuning in, that's who he is. You can follow him on Twitter at Nate Polvogt, Polvogt, just like it sounds, people. Does great work. He's a great guest, one of my favorite people to chat with when I get a chance. Also played the drums, so there's something to be said for that.
We've got that in common, Bob.
Right. So just traded Kyler Murray. So Mike Dempsey would be angry that you're asking us after the trade because all we can do is roast you or praise you, and you might not like it if we roast you. Traded Kyler Murray, James Cook, and Rondale Moore for Justin Jefferson and Jordan Love in a full PPR. So you got the Justin Jefferson deal. This seems more like a brag than a question.
Yeah, I'm fine with this. I'm assuming that outside of Kyler Murray, you have other quarterbacks that you're plugging in. So did you just got Justin Jefferson? Straight up robbery. You got Justin Jefferson. This is beautiful.
Straight up robbery. Well done, Willpower. I commend you on your dominant trade. Well done. Pretty impressive. All right, look at who's here. Eric's in the house. Hello. Thank you again, Royal Slade, for the comments and the questions. Always appreciate your presence, sir. Need one, Nino Pena says. One each. One running back, one wide receiver, one flex. What do we got here? This is a cryptic question. Need one each. Running back, wide receiver, flex, and RBs. I'm not sure what that means. White, Warren, Bijan, Pittman, and Kupp. How would you rank those? Kupp if active.
Kupp if active is obviously over Pittman. And you start him.
If active.
Against Arizona. Against Arizona. Rachaad White has been phenomenal. He's finally picking up some steam, so he's definitely the running back I'm going to plug in here. Flex wise, it's between Jaylen Warren and Bijan, I think. And I'm probably going to go Bijan. And I know that we just kind of crapped on Bijan a little bit, but in a flex position, he gets the receiving work that Tyler Algier doesn't get in the Atlanta offense. And there's that boom potential where he gets a receiving touchdown and then you're plugged in for at least 7 points.
I agree with this assessment by you, Nate Tank Polvogt. Rachaad White has turned into almost a must play right now, right? I mean, the numbers, I had some numbers up. I'll just bring them up again because I thought it was interesting. Our friend JJ Zachariason at the Late Round Fantasy put this out here this week, and I just thought it was interesting. White has at least 15.9 fantasy PPR points in each of his last 6 games. He's hit at least a 10% target share in every game since week 1. This Sunday, he joined Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Oh, I see a theme here. As the only running backs with 3 or more games of 6 or more receptions, he's run 20 times or caught 6 passes in the last 5 games and had the touchdown this past week. Touchdowns have been the missing piece, but we know they're volatile. So I'm with you there. Dominic Conti in the house. Hello, Dominic. Defense question. Get out of here. No, just kidding, Dominic. You know I love you. Miami at Jets. Or Kansas City, I'm going to go ahead and guess, against Las Vegas. And so, these are 2 great defenses. Nate, you talked to me enough to know that one of the things with defenses is I'm looking to pick on quarterbacks. I think in both these cases, these are pickable on quarterbacks.
They are, but I'm more excited. Let's pick on Boyle. Aiden O'Connell's had some weeks to start.
That's
He's
true.
got better weapons in this Vegas offense. Yeah, I'm
Casey's,
taking the Miami
Casey's defense is legit, though, right?
They are legit. They are legit. And as much as I hate Kansas City, living in Denver for 41 years, that defense is legit. However, I'm picking on Boyle.
Yeah, you got Jalen Ramsey coming off Defensive Player of the Week, AFC Player of the Week award, looking like all that and causing some havoc, and undoubtedly will cause some more. I apologize, Dominic. This was a good defense question because they're good defenses in good positions to cash in on their full value. And Jay Felicio, probably with the comment of the day, he would know. He is also very handsome. In fairness, the Douglas competition is Juju Smith-Schuster on one knee. That is fair. We'll see if Devontae Parker comes back this week. It's missed the 2 games in the bye now with a concussion, so hopefully he's got himself sorted out. I don't know that he's absolutely, going to lock it in. I agree. And look, Royal Slade's all in. Douglas absolutely the best wide receiver in New England. It is true. Nate is a smart man. That is also true. All of these things are 100% true. 100% here for Derek Carr yelling at himself. Derek Carr, you would think when you've been in the NFL as long as Derek Carr's been, you know how the perception is. I'm going to say, we heard a lot of talk this offseason, Nate, right after the season about Kyler Murray and his bad body language, kind of turning the Cardinals off, along with some of his study habits, etc. But I think that's a thing quarterbacks need to be mindful of, and the great ones have mastered that. Tom Brady can get mad and throw a fit. Aaron Rodgers can get mad and throw a fit. It's fine because they win. Right. But when you're Derek Carr, I don't think you're quite at that level where you can throw fits at players, especially when you're throwing the ball out of bounds. And, yes, your guy ran 2 yards off the path of the route, it looked like to me, or it was maybe held up a little bit. Also, you threw a lousy pass. So yeah, there's a lot to say at that. So yes, we're all about the Derek Carr yelling. Where's the meme? I'll put that up to the Mad Mug meme. Dominic Conti has another one. Pick one. For the flex, PPR, Downs versus Tampa. Josh Downs, the Indianapolis wide receiver. Jacoby Myers versus KC, or Elijah Moore at Denver.
I'm taking Downs. I'm big Josh Downs fan. And him and Pittman are like 1A and 1B as far as Minshew targets. Give me Downs all day.
I'm just checking the injury report, because I like to check those things sometimes. And he's had a knee issue that we've seen over the course of recent games that seems to have been a limiting factor. He is not on the actual injury report unless they haven't practiced yet. I'm just double checking that.
I do believe he's off of it, and they're coming off of a bye. So you would assume he's had 2 weeks to heal. But good point, Bob.
Yeah, and it looks like he is. So that being the case, yes, I would go. Jacoby Myers is still a viable play, but which offense do you think is going to rack up more production just in general? I think going against Kansas City, probably it's not going to be the Chiefs. Elijah Moore, I'm going to give that a little time. I was big on him coming in. I'm not as big on him now. And we did have that correct, Mr. Scampers. Thank you. I read the question correctly because reading is fundamental, I'm told. Or fun. I don't know. Both of those. Where do you stand on reading, Nate? Is it okay with you? Are you good with that? Reading?
Well, I'm teaching a 6-year-old how to read.
Oh my gosh.
I have to read to him. I read to him every night. So yeah, no, I'm all about reading. Reading is great.
Reading is the secret to success in all things. Dave Listman, Devontae Ridley, and DK Ayuk. Who's the odd man out in PPR? Oh my goodness. I think this is pretty easy for me. Is it easy for you, Nate?
I think so. I think it's Brandon Ayuk.
Is the odd man out?
I think so.
I don't think it's as easy for you as it is for me.
All right, let's hear it, Bob.
I'm throwing Ridley out.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's a toss-up there. I could hear Ridley I wouldn't argue with.
It's hard when guys coming off a great game. Let's see. Ayuk coming off 156 yards on 5 catches with a touchdown Sunday. But it's kind of been a little bit of a slow build over the second half of the season. I think the thing that's been missing for him is touchdowns. The production has pretty much been there. He's the most heavily targeted of the receivers. But George Kittle is has been cutting down Kittle's got 20 fantasy points in 3 straight games. That's a little bit of a limiting factor, I guess. I'm still throwing out Ridley.
My concern with Ayuk, and maybe I'm being silly here, but I think this game's out of hand early. and they keep the ball on the ground. I think Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey see a ton of work. I worry that Ayuk maybe sees 4 or 5 targets, doesn't get a touchdown because this game's out of hand early against Seattle.
I'm not with that. I think we've done this. I don't know. I'm not going to chisel this into stone yet. I'm going to let Nate chisel it into stone. But really like the new setup. Jerry Ross says going to miss the desk pounding. I will still pound my fake desk like it was here. Except it's not, but it wasn't there then either, and I pounded it anyway. So we'll pound it over Olave or Zay Flowers, both trending in directions I'm not happy with. Does one have a way better matchup than the other? What do you like here?
I like Zay Flowers against the Chargers. I like Zay Flowers in this Baltimore offense. They're getting into the Monken offense, and they're getting more confident in the air raid style Monken offense. So I'm going to roll the dice with Zay Flowers.
Yep, I would agree with that. Herms, again, with a pertinent, salient point to add to the conversation, as he always has. Oh, no!
Always.
13 rookie just getting in. Hello, how are you, rookie? Good to see you with Ayuk and Keenan Allen locked in. Who's the third wide receiver in a non-PPR? Metcalf, Nico, or Pittman?
I'm going to have to go Metcalf. That touchdown upside. I mean, you can almost bet on him being – I mean, he's going to get the red zone target. So for the boom potential, I'm taking Metcalf over the other two.
Will Power, that previous dynasty question we had where he stole Justin Jefferson from someone. He stole Justin Jefferson and adds him to a roster with Jalen Hurts. That's a power move, Will. Oh,
that is
see what I did
move.
there?
Ooh, hey now.
What does a football diehard turkey make? Bottle guy gives it. I appreciate that. A diehard's turkey, it probably does make that exact sound. Levi C. Lost Mark Andrews. Bench, so I can only start one tight end and can't keep 2 on my bench. Oh no. Who should be the one I start and plan to keep rest of season? Kyle Pitts or Isaiah Likely? I have an opinion here. I want to hear Nate's first, so I can either just drop the boom on him or like totally agree. It's a binary question. It's one or the other.
This is hard. This is hard because I'm a Kyle Pitts stan. I love Kyle Pitts. But then there's Arthur Smith. But then you worry, is Isaiah Likely going to see the volume, or are they just going to move to Flowers and Bateman? I'm probably going Pitts. Odell. Nelson Aguilar.
So
I'm probably going to go. I'm going to say Kyle Pitts here.
Nelson Aguilar was like the unlikeliest catch and fantastic score. But Beckham is coming on. It's like been 3 straight games for Beckham coming on before the injury. So here's a theory I have, and we do this as fantasy managers. We still think, or we were thinking Christian Watson was what, worthy of a 3rd round pick, maybe because of a 4-game stretch where he was super productive. Right. I think on Isaiah Likely's case, we're hoping he becomes a 1-for-1 replacement for a guy like Mark Andrews based on a super great exhibition season. And like maybe he could, attain something close to that at some point. But I'm kind of with you. I think the other weapons around are emerging and maybe, will be limiting factors, at least for him. Look, Kyle Pitts has a number of limiting factors, not the least of which is his coach. And still in this case, I would go with him. I think for this week, I have them ranked like 10 for Pitts and probably 14 or so. I don't have Likely inside my top 12 tight ends this week. And so I'd like to rather see him wait and develop. If I had to decide right now and can't keep 2 on the bench, it's Pitts because I know what the role is. And even though it's not good, I'm not sure what it's going to be with. Thank you, Dominic. Appreciate you. Levi has another question here, Nate. And we got a few minutes left. If you got a couple more questions, get them in here. We got time. We'll work it out. And then Nate and I will promote our great things that we do, not during this live stream, at other times, because we do other things. You'll be surprised. I mean, it seems like this is the only thing we do. We're like fantastic at this. We're a great combo, a fantastic duo. It's like we're intertwined, mental mind.
When are they going to get us on ESPN, Bob?
I don't know.
Have us on the mornings.
Like
forget about Get Up.
There's a bunch of talk on Twitter that I look like some guy on ESPN. I don't know who he is, but he's bald and has glasses. So funny story, the Scott Van Pelt thing. I was at the Super Bowl in Houston covering it with Sirius, and we're all in the media hotel partying up in the middle of the night. I had like multiple people walk up thinking I was Scott Van Pelt. Like Andrew Siciliano walks up. Hey, Scott. Oh. Like, dude, he's like a foot taller than me. Come on, give me a break. So,
Bob,
right.
that's amazing. I love that. I love that story.
Yes, go out on Twitter. There's a bunch of it going around today. Levi needs one quarterback and one tight end. Kyle Murray or Tua, McBride or Kincaid. This McBride or Kincaid, you're seeing a lot of this because a lot of people have, picked one up or drafted late or whatever. So interesting setup there. Tua, how afraid of the Jets are you? I think because that's the question, right?
Probably not afraid enough to bench him for Kyler Murray, to be honest. I mean, Kyler Murray's second week back in a middling offense in Arizona really, they just want a good pick, right?
Yep.
They're not looking to be great. They're not trying to push for the playoffs. I'm going to go Tua because for me, Tua is at that point as a quarterback where I don't care about the matchup. He's up here. He's an elite level quarterback for me who can do it against any defense. Now it gets more difficult with McBride or Kincaid because who's going to have the boom game? I think I'm going to go McBride here. Even though we're benching Kyler for Tua, there's locked in volume. Kincaid's volume has been up and down all season. And we don't know what this Buffalo offense is going to do, if they're going to feature him this week, if they're not going to feature him this week, if it's going to be a Stephon Diggs week, is it going to be a James Cook week, is it going to be a Gabe Davis week, is it going to be a Khalil Shakir week? There's too much up in the air. McBride's got locked in volume. So for me, it's Tua and McBride.
It's Tua and McBride for me as well. It's 8 and 10 Tua and Murray. Like, again, if it's not crazy if you wanted to go the other way and you're more fearful of that Jets defense. I think what I'm not fearful of is Tyreek Hill. I don't think he's afraid of a damn thing. He's a cheetah, people. Dave Listman, I'm sorry you were thinking DK. Feels like it's a bounce back game for Gabe Davis. I don't know. Maybe. It seems like other pieces are rising up. I was kind of back in on Gabe Davis. Like, I have been like anti Gabe Davis for I felt like last year we way overdrafted him, right? One of those players. We were drafting him based on one playoff performance, right? And this year, I think he's been better than that, but it hasn't been great lately. Should I trade Laporta and Montgomery for Kelsey? I have Eckler and Taylor Swift as his other running backs.
Taylor Swift's really not a very good running back, so you're getting the raw end of this deal here. I'm probably not the best person to give advice here because I am deeply, deeply in love with Sam Laporta to the point where I won't move him on my dynasty teams. I don't care what you offer me. He is a cornerstone of my dynasty rosters, and it might be unreasonable. I wouldn't make this deal.
All right, fair enough. I'm not a guy. I probably would not either, as a matter of fact. So we got that going for us. I read that Flowers had 9 or 10 targets when Andrews out. He is a solid play, but it's been a little down. That's the problem. Yeah. Detroit, just a little bit run heavy. Who's my best bet at quarterback, Goff or Justin Herbert versus Baltimore? It's Goff at home. We love those numbers. Nate, do you have a feel so again, another player I think that we have maybe a negative perception of because his team is faring poorly. Go out and check your numbers. I think Justin Herbert is like third in average weekly scoring for quarterbacks. I don't like the matchup this week, and I do like your options, so I wouldn't necessarily vote you off the island for this. What would you do, Nate?
I love Jared Goff. I love the matchup against Green Bay. Justin Herbert's QB3. You can't bend. Yep. You can't sit him. You can't sit him.
I'm not sitting him.
No, you just can't do it.
Not even for home Goff in a good matchup.
Nope.
Rest of my roster. Look at Will Power, flexing it here. Will's just look at me. Damn.
What is this? A 6-team league, Bob? Must be a 6-team league. I'm kidding, Will. I'm kidding.
Well-built if this is dynasty and you pulled this off, young man. Let's see. Right, with Ryan Kill. Stop it. You're just going after us. Alejandro Suarez. I need 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, and a flex. I have McCaffrey, Hall, Swift, Ford, Cooper, Devo, Devontae Adams, Puka, DJ Moore. Here's what you need to do first, Alejandro. You need to cut these questions down a little bit for us in the beginning. Like, if I told you to sit McCaffrey, would you sit McCaffrey? You would slap me in the face if I told you to sit McCaffrey.
Yeah, no, you have, obviously you're starting McCaffrey, but who's your second running back here? I think for me, it's probably Breece Hall.
Probably so.
Especially with Tim Boylan at quarterback. I mean, he's going to see a massive uptick in volume. So there's your two running backs, McCaffrey and Hall. Your two wide receivers for me, probably going DJ Moore, just because Justin Fields is and Puka. Yeah, I like Puka. And then for a flex, geez, I'm assuming Cooper is Cooper Kupp, so probably Cooper.
I think the wide receiver is Amari Cooper.
Okay, Amari. If it's Amari Cooper, then it's Devontae Adams for me.
So it's my flex is between Swift and Adams in this case. So there we've narrowed it down a little for you, Alejandro. I would never tell you to sit McCaffrey ever, because you should
Not
never
ever.
sit him. Unless he's like hurt and not playing, unless he's been ruled out, maybe even doubtful. Will Power Ford, A. Jones, Walker, Mitchell, Noah. Yes, a lot of work with trades and free agency. Still flexing. Ramondre and Rashad White. You stop it, Will Power. Last one from Levi.
Stay out of my leagues. I don't need you in my leagues.
We're gonna get this thing wrapped up here and get get these final questions in. Last one. Thank you to fill my last flex spot in PPR and bonus points to big plays. Deontay Johnson, Gabe Davis, Javonte Williams, Higgins if active, or OBJ.
Javonte. I'm going to go Javonte. I think he has the biggest boom potential of every player there.
I think OBJ has shown a little boom potential, right? Like, know, a little big playability. He seems to be connecting on deeper passes. That might be like, I tend to go Javonte when given the opportunity. It's not a great matchup this week again. It would not be Deontay it's between Javonte and OBJ. I might go OBJ in this one, and I might be overstating the case. Oh,
I couldn't argue with it.
Will Power is not only dominating his league, he is very critical of Gabe Davis. Well done. Appreciate you, Will. Guy. Should I add McBride or stick with Hill? Says Alejandro to that last list. What was that last list? I need to look back.
Are we talking?
I think it tied in. Start with Taysom Hill. That's what it sounds like. I would add McBride.
Oh no, McBride. Add McBride.
Yeah. Okay. And Royal Slate agrees with us, by the way. Jerry Ross, two quarterbacks, second quarterback love on the road at Lions, or Gardner versus banked up Tampa secondary.
I'm going to go Gardner. Minshew mania. I can't help myself, and I don't like Jordan Love in this matchup. Yeah, it is very close, but against the Lions, I think I want Minshew against Tampa Bay.
Love it's the beat up secondary. I would probably go that way too, but Love has gotten a little better the last couple of weeks. The touchdowns came back, but it's touchdowns. That's what's horrible. 10-team IDP with. Don't start telling us how you've got like Khalil Mack, or you got like every IDP guy that like. I don't need
TJ Watt
holiday to let you guys know. Thankful for you, rookie, coming all the time. Super appreciative of everyone who comes here. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Andrea. Gabe Davis is on his team. Great show. Appreciate you all. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Very thankful for this platform. Appreciate you all coming around. I'll be back Saturday at noon. Appreciative of Nate for giving the time. We tried to get him in last week. There were some issues at home. He got things sorted out and came back and did business right here on Thanksgiving Eve. Really appreciate you, Tank. Great job. You'll hear him on the Football Diehards radio program as well. You'll catch us this week some weird times. Tomorrow night, 11 to 1 a.m. after the games. We'll do that up. Friday night, we're on from 7 to 9. The one and done draft will be in there, so check that out. Saturday, back to normal, 8 to 11 p.m. on NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel. It's a simulcast, people. You can't miss it. Then Sunday, I'll be on the pregame show with Jeff Mans from 11 to 1. Nate, go ahead and tell everyone the best places to find you, the Face Off Sports Network, the Dynasty Diehards, the Fantasy Pros. Tell them where the good places are.
Well, you guys all know where Fantasy Pros is. So you're going to find my wide receiver and tight end handcuff article for one more week, just this week. And if you like some of the Fantasy Pros tweets, I probably did them. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, if you like them, if they're funny, I did it. If they're not funny, they're all Ryan Wormley's fault. So we'll just go with that here. Ryan. Dynasty Diehards on Razzball every Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, just kind of depending on schedule. And you can check me out on FF Faceoff at fffaceoff.com, at FF Faceoff on Twitter, and just in general at Nate Polvogt on Twitter. I'm always around being an idiot, having fun, posting memes, talking music with my boy Bob.
offering up great content to all of us, and we appreciate you, Nate. And everyone have a great Thanksgiving Day. Really appreciate you, and I'll see you here Saturday at noon Eastern time. And bring your questions and willpower. I've had enough of that damn power move stuff, man. You're killing it out there. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.